The Marcia Weekes Show. It's the Marcia Weekes Show. From Barbados to Africa, voices unite. Educate minds, elevate sight. It's the Marcia Weekes Show. It's the Marcia Weekes Show. From Barbados to Africa, voices unite. Educate minds, elevate sight. It's the Marcia Weekes Show. Talk truth, build roots, stories unfold. Motivate change, mobilizes the mode, that's the MR code. Hey! We growing, we know it.
Righteousness exalt a nation, this the Bible say. For this we all must take heed, for we have a part to play. One and all must come together for the love of country. Cause what happens here at home will affect you and me. And the Lord has been the people's guide for the past 300 years. With Him still on our side, we have no doubts or fears. Many a problem and situation we will have to face. All we need to do is work together and we can finish the race with grace. Come let me build this country together. We must build it brick by brick, and every challenge we'll face it. This is the strength of a nation. If we put all hands to the plow, no turning back, no stopping us. No, yes, we must put in the work, and from it we should assure. Let me start before too late. Every man must pull his weight, cause we are all lost men of our faith. Crossmen of our faith. Oh, yeah, yeah. Whoa. The whole country should be building, but some are not on board. Few doing the heavy lifting, carrying all the load, while a certain set of people living a lavish life. Another set struggling bad, barely getting by. Was my lesson in the hours after I just yet a pay increase, and raising the price of food so I get in less groceries. If you lower the cost of living and don't bother about your profit, it would surely allow the underprivileged to make it. Come, let me build this country together. We must build it brick by brick, and every challenge we'll face it. This is the strength of a nation. If we put all hands to the plow, no turning back, no stopping us. No, many hands make light work. We must put the hand to the dirt. Our progress we can't stagnate. Solutions we must create, cause we are all crossmen of our faith. Yes, we are all crossmen of our faith. Oh, yeah, yeah. The country can't build together if there is a divide. We must put our political differences aside. Our policies cannot benefit a certain few. Once you living in Barbados, we should benefit too. And we can't allow our standards to keep going down the drain, cause that would mean our forefathers give their lives in vain. We must stop our young men from destroying our land. The whole society must come together against that and take a stand. Take a stand. Come, let me build this country together. We must build it brick by brick, and every challenge we'll face it. This is the strength of a nation. If we put all hands to the plow, no turning back, no stopping us, no.
Well, yes, if we put our hand to the plow, no turning back, no stopping us now. Well, good evening to you, the loyal opposition, and thank you so very much for joining us here on another Marcia Weekes Show. Today, Friday, June the 12th. And believe it or not, the month of June has just begun, and already we're clearing through half of the month, and soon it will be the end of June. Of course, you know, they always tell us that June is the beginning of the hurricane season, and I trust we're keeping our eyes open. We're making all the preparations just in case, as it only takes one for us to be impacted. And so we are praying that this season will go clear for us, and that God will keep our country and our nation from the devastation of any hurricane season, and any hurricanes in this season. But as is always my custom on Friday nights when I host a show, I don't want to forget our national pledge. We've heard our national anthem, and of course, a strong song that we were just listening to. But the night would be incomplete to me without us repeating the national pledge. And I want to ask you, those of you who are not only viewing tonight, but those of you who are viewing in the days to come, particularly as Barbadians, whether you're in the diaspora or here in the country, to make a commitment to your country. And so I encourage you to join me as I repeat our national pledge. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living to do credit to my nation wherever I go. That is a commitment I have made to my country. And as we go through the show tonight, we will be dealing with a number of subjects, a number of topics which require us to take off our partisan caps and put on our national cap. Because what we're going to be engaging in tonight and what we're going to be discussing tonight has to do with our nation and not a political party. As you know, I have often said on this program that as far as I'm concerned, when the elections are over, the persons who are elected to parliament no longer represent a party, they now represent a constituency. And their obligation is to the people of the constituency that has selected them to represent them in the House of Assembly. And so I'm praying that our parliamentarians in this current parliament will commit themselves to looking after the well-being of our country and our people, regardless of the consequences, because sometimes in life, that is just what you have to do. Thank you so very much, Judy, for letting me know. But again, I believe it's our internet system here. And of course, as you would know, I'm streaming this out of my home, and there's several others that will be using it. My grandchildren are using it for their exams and so on. And so it's possible that that could be impacting, but I'm going to get some experts to help me know exactly what to do so as to make sure I can get a smoother presentation for you. And maybe it's my computer. My computer is quite an old one at the moment. It's a great system that has served me for many years. I haven't changed it for, oh my goodness, over 5, 6, 8 years. But, you know, I thank God for it, and it's serving its purpose for me at the moment. So let me welcome all of you that are joining us tonight here on the Marcia Weekes Show, the loyal opposition. We look forward always to welcoming every single one of you. And as I mentioned you, Judy, I'll start with you. Good evening to you, and such a pleasure to have you with us this evening again as well. Marvel Ashley, thank you so very much, and thank you. Thank you for wishing well for my wife and healing. I really appreciate that. She is not out of the woods, but she's improving significantly in terms of her preparations for when we return to Colombia, which we hope will be in a couple of months' time, to continue her medical procedures there. And as she has started there, she wants to return to continue, and that they have all of her records and everything. But I'm happy to report, as I did before, that the Lord healed her, really did heal her of the life-threatening blockage by the gallstone that was in her gallbladder, within her pancreatic duct, threatening her life. The doctors told us here that it could result in, I think it was jaundice, which is life-threatening. And so we went very quickly to the only place close by that had the particular piece of equipment that would be able to address it, only for the doctors to discover on her arrival that the Lord had healed her. And they were quite baffled when they looked at all of the pictures and all of the reports. So we are grateful to God for the miracles that he has performed in her life. We want to welcome you to Sharon P8E. Welcome to the show tonight. Monica, always a great joy to have you joining us. And Taroni Hall, my good friend, great to have you with us again tonight. Really appreciate seeing you, sir, on every single show that I can recall. Just seeing you turning up on the show. It's great to have you with us. Also, Bajan Boy 246, great to have you with us again tonight. Marvel please, yes, thank you so much for encouraging them to like and share. And I want to reinforce that as well. Andrea Critchlow, great to have you with us again tonight. That's Charmaine Taylor. A pleasure to have you back with us this evening. Of course, as I've said, I'm not as great at this as Marcia is, but I tried my best. Shirley 4852, really nice to have you with us tonight. Again, a real joy to have you. Laurie Bob, I'm going to have to look up again, Laurie, and see if you're related to the Bobs in the Grand Cayman. I have to find out if that is so. Diana Husbands, good to have you too with us this evening, and good night to you as well. Jacqueline Aline, good night. Yes, Marcia, Dave, and the loyal opposition. Of course, Dave does such a tremendous job. We don't often recognize him or make note of his involvement. but he continues to do a great job in the background, helps me tremendously in so many ways, and I'm really thankful to him. So yes, blessings for a beautiful Sabbath and relaxing weekend. Thank you so much, Sherry Johnson. Matthew Brown, good night to you as well. Pleasure to have you joining us tonight. And wow, well, goodness gracious, I'm a big girl. There you are. Good evening to you. Nice to see you here too, as well as in reality. Calendar 2463. Pleasure to have you with us again tonight. And really a joy to have every single one of you coming on board every time there's a Marcia Weekes show. We couldn't possibly accomplish this without your presence. And we are grateful tonight for every single one of you that join us in every time we come online here at the Marcia Weekes show. Now, tonight for me, I'm going to, well, yes, just before I get into a few things I want to quickly share with you, want to inform you of this dinner coming up on the day before Father's Day. This is going to be on Saturday, June the 20th. This is going to be a tremendous gathering, a Father's Day celebration of love, legacy, and family, presented by the Marcia Weekes Show. It's a community initiative, and we are inviting you to be a part of this tremendous event coming up on the 20th. That's the 20th of June, to sponsor, support a father. And you can take a look at the flyer. There's a lot more details there. I don't know how big you can get it up, Dave, but you have been selected as one of the special group of fathers. It's really wonderful event that is upcoming. You're invited to bring one child only, to share a special evening at Sifa House. This is in Upper Calamarock, St. Michael. If you want to know how to get there, if you're coming up from the city, this is the entrance on the right-hand side, just before Guardian Life. If you're coming from Wildy, it's the entrance on the left-hand side, immediately after Guardian Life. You travel straight down inside, and you'll see the facility on your right-hand side. So please don't forget that Saturday, June the 20th, a special Father's Day event hosted by the Marcia Weekes Show at Sifa House there on Calamarock. And of course, as you know, next Sunday is going to be Father's Day, and we invite you to keep that in mind. Fathers are very important, very, very important in our society. And even as we face much of the challenges in our country today, it is simply revealing the critical importance and critical nature of the father in the household. Okay? So we want to ensure that you are mindful of that. We have the Elevate. Again, just going to try and make this a little larger for me. Let me see how I do this. I'm still learning all of this stuff, so you all be patient with me. Don't dismiss me just yet. Okay, just be patient with me. How to stamp out literacy. Thank you. Give just 1 hour, and if you can just scroll it up for me, Dave, that they can see the whole thing. Volunteers are needed. 1 hour every week or 1 hour every 2 weeks. Help a child with reading, English language skills, mathematics support. Classes are held Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4:30 to 6:30, on Saturdays, 9 to 11. So we're encouraging you to be a part of the solution and be a part of this. Where is the location? If you can just scroll a little bit further up for me, Dave. Or is it at the top? I am looking for the location there that they can know exactly where to come. I believe it would be, let me just see here as we go up. For more information, just go right up a bit more. I think the banner is blocking it. That banner nation is that it might be blocking it. Let me see if I can do anything about that. Okay, 236-7000. You can give them a call, 236-7000, as it relates to this initiative to help with our children. So, you know, there's always a lot to do where our community is concerned, and you know, there is so much, and especially in the country today, where so much is happening, so much is occurring in the nation today. we really need to address as much as we can. All right. Now, just quickly before we get into our first guest this evening, who we want to welcome to the show in a few minutes, I certainly want to encourage you with regards to this BIMPay matter. Of course, we know, I believe it was today that BIMPay was launched, and this is an initiative by the Central Bank of Barbados. And I just want to quickly touch on it because my time is going very quickly. And it seems to be a tremendous initiative, somewhat, I understand, like Zelle, I think it's Zelle in the US, and Wise, something like that in the US, and a couple of others across the world, which will make provision for quite a number of facilities as it relates to our country. My information that I've received advises me that, you will be able to send and receive money 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Transfers will occur in under 10 seconds. It works across all participating banks and credit unions, even if the sender and recipient use different institutions. There's a BIMPay wallet that is being provided by the Central Bank of Barbados for those persons who may not have a traditional bank account, so that you can send money to others. You can receive money instantly. You can generate and scan QR codes and so on. There's quite a lot of positive information from what I observe with regards to BIMPay. However, there is always in these aspects of government, because central bank, let's face the reality, central bank is governance. And when we're talking about central banks, you must understand that central banks are not owned by the country. Central banks are owned by the United States, like the Federal Reserve, I think it is, or the Rothschilds. I can't remember the exact owners of it. But central banks are not owned by countries. Let's get that clear. Let's get that really, really, really clear, because sometimes people can think that when you're talking about these things, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're kind of blowing things into the wind. But I'm not. I am well aware of the fact that as we deal with matters to do with the central bank, we could be looking at things to do with the central bank digital currency. And there are matters of transparency and accountability that are crucial and critical when it comes to any financial matter. And as a matter of fact, I want to raise a couple of questions tonight as we engage this aspect of BIMPay. First of all, what assurances do we have for the future as it relates to our information? Who's going to have the access to that information? Because if the central bank now is going to be involved in these kinds of transactions that are on a daily basis, and really what I would call down in the streets of finance, so to speak, who is going to be responsible for securing all of this information from people all across the country? I also want to find out if there's any connection between the BIMPay and central bank digital currency, because we are hearing a lot across the world about central bank digital currencies that are going to create some challenges for all of us in the future. There are quite a few questions I have. Is there any future connection between BIMPay and the National Digital ID? We are seeing a move across the world for the governments to control the accounts and the spending of their citizens in a manner that is not really conducive to creating trust where governments are concerned. And the World Economic Forum themselves have warned about the capability of the abuse of the digital ID and these type of payment systems. The World Economic Forum has warned about that. This is nothing that is hidden. And what about the matters of privacy to do with by accounts, and who has access to that information? Who has control over all the information that is being collected while using the app? And does the political government, and I want you to hear what I'm saying, does the political government, not the government, the political government, and I'm sure you understand what I mean, have access to our information? We saw this happen during the pandemic in Canada with the then Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, who locked down the accounts of people who were protesting during the pandemic lockdown in Canada. He shut up them out of their accounts and created some really massive problems and challenges for the people. Couldn't even buy food for their babies and so on. we want to be assured that there is going to be no capability of any government in Barbados, whether BLP, DLP, or otherwise, having the capability of shutting its clients or shutting its citizens out of their banking capability and their financial privacy. Do citizens reserve the right to decline using BIMPay and continue to use their personal banking apps? And, I have a personal banking app, and I'm going to be brutally frank with you. I am not about to hand over my responsibilities and my information and data to any central bank. And even if you were to tell me, the central bank still has the capability of monitoring what I do, I will say this to you, that there's certain agreements that the bank has with me as a client. And if they violate the privacy aspect, I can take legal action, and I will take legal action against any institution that seeks in any way, shape, or form to try to use my information in such a manner that it would be detrimental and giving them power and access over myself. And I'm not making any fun about that. I appreciate the capability of what this app is going to be doing. And, we look forward to seeing it in operation. I've been looking at the comparison between BIMPay and CIBC FirstPay. Of course, CIBC has also introduced Google. They have also introduced Google Pay. I think that's what it's called. So that I'm being advised that the wallets the central bank wallet will not work without a bank account. Well, that's what they indicated, but that it would. But the person apparently has to have a bank account in order for those wallets to work. I've also looked at the comparison between BIMPay and PayPal. BIMPay is for local transactions, from what I understand. PayPal, of course, is more international, and as a result, BIMPay is more familiar and better, I understand, for local transactions. But it comes back to the matter of transparency and accountability, and the questions that I've asked concerning the accessibility to my information. I want to know that when I am using anything to do with my personal information, that it is secure and cannot be accessed by anyone for whom I have not given the permission to be able to access that information. So I am looking forward to a number of these questions being answered. Some of you may be able to answer some of them here, and I'm going to ask Dave to help me monitor it, because you're making quite a lot of comments and maybe too many for me to be able to monitor all of them. Yes, thank you so much there. That's Rescue, is it? I didn't give permission to the credit union to share my information with the central bank. I will have to check if it's in the fine print. I will be closing my credit union account until I feel comfortable. I would say that any financial institution that does not give you the complete assurance that your information is secure and private between you and the bank, it would be, to my mind, a cause for concern where I am concerned. Let me put it to you in that manner. All right. So, okay, Dave, for some reason, I'm not seeing comments coming up on my screen. I don't know why. And maybe I'll learn something about that in the future. But anyhow, I'm just not seeing any comments at all on my screen. And I have no idea as to why that would be the case. I have selected comments and I'm not seeing anything there. So maybe you can check that out for me, Dave, and let me know. Well, it's 7:30 and I want to welcome my first guest to the show tonight, because we have a lot of really serious things to discuss. And I want to make it clear that on this Marcia Weekes Show, we are not here opposing government for the sake of opposing. We are here for the love of our country. We are here because we want to know what is going on. We want questions that we have to be answered. We are expecting transparency and accountability. And I want to say that even as I have listened to several of the Brass Tack shows, that that I am concerned about what is, in the interest of my country, and I'm not concerned in any way, shape, or form about any political party. None. I'm not concerned. What I'm concerned about is my country, and once elections are over, we get down to the matter of governing the country and doing what is in the interest of the people of Barbados. So I want to welcome my first guest this evening, and that is, of course, going to be Madam Caroline. And Caroline, again, it's such a joy. I must say this to you, I always look forward to that smile. Always look forward to that smile. I'm very, very serious. When I see you and I see that smile, I take a deep breath and I get confident and I say, okay, good. I think the show is going to go good tonight because I have Caroline on the show with me. It's so nice to see you again this evening. Good evening and welcome to the Marcia Weekes Show.
Good evening, Dr. Ferdinand. Good evening.
And that's not flattery. Just in case the others think the folk are thinking I'm flattering you. I'm being very honest, very, very honest. I don't flatter anybody, all right? Being very honest.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Good evening
to you.
Royal Opposition as well. And we are here another Friday evening. And, it's a privilege. And I thank the Marcia Weekes Show for this opportunity.
I know we have a major subject to discuss tonight. Of course, we've been hearing a lot about it over the past week, and that has to do with these announcement of an initiative for the exploration of oil off the coast of Barbados. Of course, this is nothing new. If my mind serves me correctly, this was actually initiated back in the Owen Arthur governance, I believe. I stand to be corrected, but I believe there was some discussions back then. I believe it was with BP at the time, that is British Petroleum. And of course, I think that was revisited in 2022. And here we are again now in 2026. And I know this is something that I'm sure you have your own slate of questions.
You got that right. You are so right. And yes. I would start with the first question. Is Barbados still committed to transforming into a 100% renewable energy and carbon neutral island? Is this still a fact? And yes, it may be a fact, but my question is, and maybe my concern is, how will we be able to remain in that situation? Yes, I know that we will say we will put things in place so that this remains so. But I ask the question, how much of it is in our control? And how well will we manage it based on our recent reputation? And I would just pull one ministry out off the top of my head. Housing, we promise a certain amount of houses, and this is what we are going to do. And we know how much we produce in comparison to what we said we will do. So I am judging based on what I usually hear and what I see at the end or for the end result. Good night, Beverly Prasad. Good night.
Good night.
Good night to all the viewers. Yes, I'm seeing some of the comments. So I'm judging based on what I see usually happening. Are we able to stick to this? We said this is what we are going to do. And we would have said that the oil extracted offshore is intended strictly for foreign export. In other words, the cash that we receive will be used to purchase the battery storage and wind turbines needed for ourselves. All right. We're going to purchase the battery storage and the wind turbines needed to green our own island grid. We will not burn our own oil for electricity. We will not do that. And I'm asking the question, are we sure that's what's going to happen? Or are these just words? And it said, while Barbados' domestic grid will be clean, the island will still be actively exporting carbon emissions to the rest of the world. How does that work? So we're going to be clean here, but we're going to be exporting. We're going to be exporting carbon emissions all to the rest of the world. But yet we are going to remain clean. This 166 square mile, this island, we are going to remain clean. That's what is being said. This is the reality. This is the backdrop. Those wealthy nations have failed to provide the promised billions in climate finance to help small islands transition. Therefore, we have to extract oil as a survival mechanism. Then we're going to use the profits of the fossil fuel economy to build defenses against the climate damage caused by that very economy. Now, this sounds conflicting. But I would say, if we can get it done, great. But again, I'm looking at our past record of whether we were able to do what we say we are going to do. And if we are saying, hey, listen, going all over the world and begging, we've had to go all over the world and beg for grants to do what we say we will do. And now we have some oil in Barbados. So why will we continue going all over the world begging for grants and loans and whatever? When we have oil here, let's drill it. Let's get the money.
Drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill. Let's drill our oil. Let's get some money. Let's get the money, and we will fulfill that promise.
We want money. You remember that? You remember that famous statement? We want money.
Yes.
Okay.
At the end of the day, money is what will drive the economy. So we want that money. So we are promising. I promise you, listen, I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna just sell it, and I'm gonna get some monies, and maybe we will get some more electric buses and some electric vehicles, and we will be cool in Barbados. That's what we say. That's what we say we are going to do. So we are still committed to transforming into 100% renewable energy. We are going to drill that oil. We're not going to use it here. We're going to sell it. And we will get the necessary money to, make sure we keep our commitment into 100% renewable energy and carbon neutral island. Sounds great. Sounds great. And to be honest with you, I hope it works as great as it sounds. But I have the question, will it work as great as it sounds? Will we be able? Yes, I know we have said we're going to put some things in place to make sure that we are careful as much as is possible and that all goes according to plan. But my question is, what if it doesn't go according to plan? What if it does not go according to plan? And I want to examine, the pros and the cons for oil exploration in Barbados. And the things that are in our favor is yes, and it is money. Yes, lots of money. Lots of money if there is lots of oil. Yes, there's no doubt about that.
Well, there is a claim, Carolyn, that Barbados has the potential of some $13 billion in potential oil and gas, or 13 billion. I think, Dave, you had it up a moment ago, in terms of the amount of oil, which is said to exceed what Guyana had. Of course, we know that for some years now, Venezuela, I think it was in Trinidad, I don't remember if Guyana was involved, were claiming that vein of oil runs from their sources. And so there you are, Barbados could be sitting on 13 billion barrels of oil, rivaling Guyana's Starbrook block. But as I'm listening to you speak, Caroline, there are a couple of questions I want to ask. If transitioning to this aspect of non-fossil fuel energy is going to be so dramatically successful and critical in reducing the carbon footprint, why are we seeing European Union countries, several of them, beginning to back away from the entire process? Several of them are dismantling their windmills at the moment. We have heard of several massive solar fields in the United States that have closed down. I have not been able to explore all of the rationale, but the reality is that many of these countries in the European Union, who, mind you, were some of the primary countries pushing this whole matter of climate change and carbon emissions. And the reality to me, when I think about it, I see these other countries beginning to back away. So I'm asking, is Barbados asking questions of those countries who are backing away from the use of windmills and massive solar capability as to why they are doing that? And then the other question that comes to my mind, you talk about Barbados becoming, let me make sure I get it right, energy independent. Did I get that right? I hope I got it right. Committed
to transforming into 100% renewable energy.
Thank you. 100% renewable energy.
Island.
But we have 180, so I am told, 180,000 vehicles on the road in Barbados. The majority of all of them, including some of the recently imported ones, they use fossil fuel. So how are we going to transition the country? I'm talking about the country, because if you're going to talk to me about the country, it has to impact every segment. How are we going to be transitioning to this kind of an environment when we have 180,000 vehicles on the road that use fossil fuel?
Dr. Ferdinand, with the amount of money that we are going to get from this oil, we are going to buy
Everybody
more
electric
buses.
cars?
We're going to get rid, and we're going to buy all electric vehicles. We're going to have so much money that we're going to buy the electric vehicles, and they're coming to Barbados,
and they're going to give them away to the citizens. They're going to distribute them.
Well, we're going to have so much money that we can sell them at even cheaper now than the vehicles that we are getting. So
we'll probably get free electric cars then.
Not free. No, you're not getting them free. You're going to get them at a price. Now you're going to get it at a price. No, nothing is free. You're going to get them at a price. This oil is going to be so much that you're going to get them at a cheaper price, and it's going to be fine. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Personally, I believe that there is oil. I believe that there is. Yes. I believe that. It
has been proven. It has been substantiated by BIMPay. They have shown it, and But let me introduce another question very quickly, Carolyn. Not meaning to cut across your presentation. Please forgive me.
Okay, go ahead.
But I've heard a lot about the transitioning, and of course, I'm a motor vehicle fanatic.
Yes.
And I know that these vehicles, most of them, even the high class vehicles, give 8 to 10 year warranties on their batteries. Because at the end of 8 to 10 years, I'm told by the manufacturers of automobiles that the batteries only last 8 to 10 years. And that at present, batteries cost around 40 to 50,000 Barbados dollars to replace. I wonder in 8 to 10 years, based on the value of an automobile by depreciation, compared to the costs at that time of a battery, how many people are going to be able to get rid of their vehicles to change them? That's one. And then secondly, what are we going to do with all of the lithium batteries? That is an environmental hazard of the highest order. What are we going to do with all these lithium batteries that are going to come onto the market? Just a couple of questions to add to your pool.
Dr. Ferdinand, I believe we're going to have so much money that, we're going to be able to deal with that. We're going to be able to deal with that. We're going to come up with something. We're going to come up with something to handle that. Not to worry. Not to worry. That's a very valid question. But when we have enough money from this oil, we're going to be able to hire the experts that will be able to come and come up with some way of how we're going to handle these things, because we're going to be hiring the best people.
Well, this is actually a question I wanted to ask you as well. Who's going to be taking the responsibility for the development of the oil drilling and this type of thing? Who's going to be responsible for that? Is it going to be the Barbados government? Or are they, I understand that let me say that, or are they going to seek overseas financing? Are they going to be seeking organizations that will do it at the cost to the organization with some profit arrangement with them? How is that going to work?
Let me say here and now, I'm speaking on behalf of Caroline Raw. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone else, so that nobody gets mixed.
Yes, absolutely.
What I'm saying, yeah.
Entitled to questions.
Right. So I'm questioning, and I'm saying, I'm saying what I would love to see transpire too. I would love this to work out, to be honest, and I would love that every citizen in Barbados, that we have a share in this oil. I honestly think that would be great. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But I believe that we would be looking for the best persons to handle to do this drilling or whatever has to be done. Of course, if we found oil, we are able to probably go and get the necessary financing. Don't forget we can draw. We can draw down. If you forget we have that there, we can draw down. You know, we have the what we call
$260 million standby arrangement
yes,
with
right,
the IMF.
right. You know, we can draw down on that. I'm thinking, you know, and we have to have money, Dr. Ferdinand. We can do that, and we can get the best possible persons to do all that has to be done. We can make sure we put in our fine, you know, what we expect, and ensure that these things are followed. Because all of this is important, you know. All of this is going to be important because we want to get that oil and get the maximum money. That is the pro, so that we can offset the cons, the negatives. Yeah. So we will get billions of dollars. Yeah, we're able to reduce the 400 million a year that we spent on imported fossil fuels. So we will be able to reduce that. And then, you know, we will have energy security, you know, against the fuel price, the spike, and, you know, the supply disrupt. We're going to have that energy security. We're going to have national wealth. Those are the pros. Those are the pros. And that sounds great. That sounds great. Sounds really great. But then we have the other end of it. And of course, you know, Dr. Ferdinand, there's an environmental risk. We can have all of the best laid plans, and there's something called an accident. No one's fault, an accident. So we can have something like an oil spill. An oil spill can harm our coral reefs and destroy our marine life. So that's something we have to look at. And we can put as much in place as we possibly can. But an accident is an accident. It's not intentional. And you can't prevent an accident. You can prevent some of them, but not all of them. So that is something we will have to be very watchful of, mindful. Are we going to get enough money that in the event that there's an oil spill, we can take care of our coral reefs and the marine life and everything that will be affected? Is it going to be enough? We also have a tourism, it's going to be a tourism threat if we have that oil spill. And we know tourism is our main industry. Oil spill, what will become of our beaches? What will become of our fishing industries? Will we have enough money? Because now these things are going to be negative. This is going to be a negative factor. Is this going to cost money if we lose our tourism industry and our fishing industry? Not to forget that, because an oil spill can wipe out. We're just 166 square miles. Tutus, we'll be surrounded. We can be surrounded. So if our tourism industry is wiped out and our fishing industry is wiped out, will we have enough money coming from this oil? That's something we'll have to think about. And I dare say we have to pray about it. Dr. Ferdinand?
Well, I was made to understand that an announcement had been made by the minister responsible for energy that the country is offering oil exploration licenses to companies who may have the resources to be able to drill for the oil. It will not be government funded. Now, neither is there any guarantees that any of the searches may actually give us commercially viable oil. And if there's no commercially viable oil, the question has to be asked: how do the investors then get back their money when these licenses are actually issued? Now, I believe there is a clip that Dave has to do with oil spills, because if in the event something of this nature happens, it would be assumed that the companies who would have received the licenses and the permissions to drill would be responsible for the cleanup. So I don't know, Dave, if you can run that video for us that you have, and let's see what it says as it relates to the matters of an oil spill.
Fact 8. The coral limestone beneath your feet on Barbados is not just rock. It is a living filtration machine. Rain falls, enters the ground, and spends weeks traveling through fractures and cave networks, emerging at the coast as purified spring water. The island's entire water supply is processed by geology. But that same system has a critical flaw. One significant oil spill in the wrong coastal location permanently poisons the aquifer. The purification system and the contamination pathway are the same system. There is no separating them.
Now that's an interesting point right there. I mean, you know, once you destroy our coral reefs, you know, it's taken I don't know, millions of years or whatever for our coral reefs to be developed. And I'm all for the oil exploration. I still have a number of questions as it relates to any connections between the announcement, and incidentally, our Prime Minister is supposed to be the keynote speaker. Let me see if I have my information correct. Is supposed to be the keynote speaker at let me get this right, at in Nigeria, I think it was. June the 21st, to address the Bank Conference as keynote speaker. And that's what the information I have has indicated to me. And I'm just wondering, you know, what is, if there is any relationship or any intent to have any relationship between the Afro-Exim Bank and the efforts that are being made in terms of oil exploration, because we don't know anything. That's the problem. The problem with this administration is that it doesn't tell the people anything, period. It just goes about doing what it has to do, no explanations, no accountability, no transparency. So it is left for the people to conclude certain things.
Yes.
Which I think is a reckless way of leadership. You should be able, if this is a democratic country, if you have the mandate, you say, from the people, then it should not be problematic for you to come back to the people and tell the people what is happening. Tell them what you intend. What is the intent in terms of exploration? Where is the financing coming from? I'm also made to understand that the African Bank just provided a $750 million landmark deal with Africa's leading indigenous energy company called Air Energy. And it was hailed as one of the best oil deals in the world. And incidentally, the chairman of that AIS energy system is Mr. Tony Elumu, who is a Nigerian economist and an investor who came to Barbados and had major meetings with our energy minister, who was the foreign minister at the time, and actually at one time was tipped to be the governor of the central bank here in Barbados. So what are we seeing in terms of these? Is there any connections? What are the synergies that are going on here in the context of what you refer to as the history of this administration? Mr. Elumu, I hope I have his name correct, he came here. He's going to Egypt as well on 21st of June to give a keynote address there as well. And it is he is the chairman of this energy organization, this energy company. And here we now have the Afro-Exim Bank coming into Barbados very shortly. Actually, it's here already. And so we're asking if there are any connections. Are there any connections between what is being presented in terms of what the government is saying, and for that matter, Africa, the entire African continent for that matter? Because we could be dealing with Nigeria, we could be dealing with other countries in Africa that are exploring. As you know, Africa is exploring a lot of their natural resources right now to break the colonial grip that countries in Europe like France have had over them over the years. And that's why I'm beginning to say, I don't know if you're aware of it. I was just trying to find it while you were talking. Namibia, I think it is, has also begun the exploration of oil in their area as well. So here we are pushing climate change. Barbados is the climate change advocate around the world. And here we are drilling for oil in our territorial waters, okay, while we are advocating for climate change because we're claiming that carbon emissions are destroying the atmosphere. And from my observations, for example, I watched a committee hearing in the United States to do with carbon dioxide, which is the gas that I'm being told is the one that is being hailed as the one destroying our atmosphere, carbon dioxide. And I asked the question, as did the person at the time, 0.0001% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. It is that small because carbon dioxide is breathed by plants. And we have had a revitalization of several forests. I heard the Guyanese president in an interview recently talk about an increasing in the aspect of the forest in Guyana. Brazil is also talking about it. And so the plants breathe carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which is what we breathe. So it is ludicrous for Mr. Bill Gates in a TED Talk to talk about going to zero emissions of carbon dioxide, because if we did, every plant on the earth would die.
Yeah.
And so would we. But then again, that is his strategy in terms of reducing the population of the world. And he is focusing primarily on Africa. Forgive me for the interjection. I hope I haven't gone too far away from your aspects.
That's okay. I say V Hall here saying we can't even discard our own garbage.
And I see Pedro Gemment referring to the fact that carbon dioxide is the gas of life. And they're telling me it's not only carbon. Here's Pedro Gemment, not only climate change, but net zero. So clearly, I don't think these people know what they're talking about, to be brutally frank. And I promised one night to really dig into this climate change matter, because they're a bunch of liars and a bunch of conspiracy. Governments are more conspiracy theorists than the people are.
I think they follow the script, and everyone is on, is aligned. This is the script. This is what we're going to be saying.
Without question. Without question, Carolyn. Al Gore started this in 1993 when he was vice president of the United States of America. And he said that by the year 2021 or something like that all of the coastal towns would be submerged by water. Well, that hasn't happened. And as a matter of fact, I think it's either the Arctic or Antarctica has increased its ice capability, ice cap, by 547,000 tons of ice. You see, this is why these governmental and political leaders are regurgitating information coming from a group of people who are only interested in robbing the taxpayers of their money through a climate change process, so that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And that is the fun. You know, they always tell me follow the money. They always tell me follow the money. You know, I don't want to get into this now, you know, in terms of the climate change, but I have the facts. I have the facts. We have the climate people, the scientists who are showing that all of this stupid talk about climate change is nothing but a scam. Anyhow, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that there for now.
Yes, Barbados is committed to what it says about the climate change. We are going to get the oil. We want the money from the oil. We're going to sell it to the other persons. But we ourselves, we are committed to what we said we are committed to. My question is this so? Is it really so? Or are we just saying what we want or what we think people want to hear? And I would always, and I'll say in closing my section, I hope that we manage this better than I've seen us manage anything else in Barbados.
But there's so much, sorry.
Not lose out on this.
Mm-hmm. There's so much more, Carolyn, that we can cover in terms of Africa, the financing, you know, in terms of climate change advocacy and all of these different kind of things. To me, this is a very deep and in-depth discourse that is needed in terms of even, you know, even if we export all that we find and we bring in the financing to do all of the transitioning to renewable energies and these different kinds of things, we are talking about establishing a data center. And maybe that is one of the reasons they're trying to look at it, because if there's one thing that I have observed across the world is that data centers consume massive amounts of electricity. And in every area where they have been established, there has been an increase in the electricity costs for the citizens. As a matter of fact, many people do not realize it, but Barbados ranks 16th in the highest cost of electricity in the world. Barbados ranks at number 16. Out of 196 countries, I think is what the UN information tells me. Barbados ranks at number 16 as being among the top 20 most expensive countries when it comes to electricity. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, Carolyn, thank you so very much. Don't go anywhere because we ain't done. We ain't done, you know, because I am one that sees a lot of connections between things that are happening in our country. We may be talking about oil, but also one of the major areas that that has got our attention over the past week has been the matter of anti-gang legislation. And I want to refer to a conversation on brass tacks that the former leader of the opposition Democratic Labour Party had with the moderator as it relates to the whole matter of anti-gang legislation and the gun courts that we're looking. There's consideration being given as it relates to this matter. Now, I see Apostle in the back room. I know he's not supposed to join us until much later. I think sometime around 9 he's supposed to join us, but I wonder if he would be interested in coming in and joining us in this discussion. You know, that it's a discussion that we're having, and I want to be clear to the people listening to this program. This program is not anti-government, is pro-Barbados. That is what this program is. We are pro-Barbados. And we are a program that has the right to raise questions on any matter as it relates to the citizenry of this country, as our national pledge has made it clear. We pledge allegiance to our country and to our flag. So let me welcome you, Apostle. I know that you are a bit early. I'm getting a little bit of feedback there from somewhere in your area. But let me welcome you. Prematurely into the conversation, and even though I know Carolyn has been focusing on the matter to do with oil, and I believe we'll be getting back to that anyhow. We'll be getting back to that a little later in the program. So Carolyn, please note that we'll be getting back to that. We do want to touch on this matter to do with the anti-gang legislation. And I want to ask Dave to just play an extract. I listened to the entire, I think it was around 2 hours today, of Mr. Thorne's contribution on brass tacks. I think it was Wednesday. And he made some tremendous points with regards to the matter. So Dave, if you could just go ahead and play that clip, and then we'll enter into discussion afterwards.
No, that's a deep social problem. And there were issues of constitutionality, of course, but Parliament has the sole and exclusive power to pass laws of that nature. And in my view, I expressed the view then, and I still express the view now, that the second Bail Act was weak, and that it did little more than the first, except that it was longer. And what it essentially did, it said, look, bail is an issue for the courts. Let the courts deal with it. Now, fine, the courts do have the power and the authority to deal with bail because bail applications come before the courts. And the power of the court is equal as a constitutional body. It is equal to that of the Parliament. But the Parliament had the power to pass legislation that was strict, even if it meant amending the Constitution. Not for the sake of the exercise of power, but for the sake of protecting the society. So that the government then was soft in terms of a new Bail Act. Philip, I've said all of that to say this, that the government's record in terms of passing strict legislation is not good. Now here, the government has come to the country 2 years after I asked for it with anti-gang legislation. One of the main problems I have with the government's present stance is that the government is distorting, and I'm going to speak frankly, that the government is distorting the debate. Now, anti-gang legislation is primarily intended to erase the problem of organized crime. When I say organized crime, I'm talking about crime that is highly sophisticated. I'm talking about crime that is not random. I'm talking about organized crime. When you speak of organized crime, you speak of organizations. And every organization that functions rationally has leadership. You will notice, I have noticed, that the government has located the debate on the streets. And that is the first fundamental criticism I make of the government. That the legislation, the debate has focused on the street. And it is no accident that within a few days of the anti-gang legislation having come before the Parliament, a few days later, the government is talking about a gun court. What are you going to do to the men who have the guns? And
So you think the legislation is targeted towards low-hanging fruit still?
Yes, precisely. Anti-gang legislation is primarily intended to disorganize and dismantle organized crime. In other words, you go to the head.
But part of this legislation here that I'm reading here that was passed a few days ago.
Yes.
It says definition of a gang. You're just going to summarize it quickly for those
Yes, please, I appreciate
of the listeners who might not have been following the debate and so on. It says definition of a gang. It also says it's looking at gang membership and gang association, facilitating or assisting a gang. There are tougher penalties for gang members. Gang leaders and facilitators can face lengthy prison terms. There's some offenses carrying penalties of up to 25 years imprisonment.
Yes.
It also says about, enhancing investigative powers. Law enforcement agencies are granted additional tools to investigate organized criminal activity. It says there's a focus on organized crime. The law is intended to address gun violence, drug trafficking, organized criminal networks, gang-related intimidation and recruitment, other serious offenses linked to criminal enterprises.
Can you pause it? Can you pause it there for a moment, Dave? Thank you so very much. Just hold it. Don't take it off the screen yet. Just hold it for the time being. Carolyn and Apostle, I think Mr. Thorne was clear on his presentation that he was happy to see the anti-gang legislation come before Parliament, although there were areas of concern that he had. But he was making the point that while the anti-gang legislation contains wording that targets the aspect of organized crime and at every level, that the debate, and I listened to him stress this on several occasions, that the debate that was being pushed by the government had to do with on the street. And this is where the reference for low-hanging fruit came, because what he was suggesting is on the basis of their discussion in the public domain, that it would appear that they were not drawing attention to the higher level of organization, the leaders, the heads, the people who are at the top, people who are turning their head to things coming in at the port. There are only three or 4 points of entry in this country. The Bridgetown port, I think there are 2 ports, one Port Ferdinand and I think Port St. Charles, and then the airport. We don't have 10 and 15 points of entry unless we have gunboats and speedboats coming in. Our coast, the Coast Guard know nothing about and are not investigating. So obviously, we have a challenge at a level that the discourse of the government is not focusing on, not referring to, and that is the higher level. Your thoughts, and I mean, in what you've heard here, and I'm sure both of you would have heard some aspect of the discussion with Mr. Thorne on Wednesday. Apostle, welcome. Good to have you with us tonight again. As I said, I know you're a little early, but it's good to have you because I'm sure you have your thoughts as well to weigh in on this, as you do, Carolyn, as well. And I think later on we'll be going back to touch on the matter of oil, and we are expecting another very special guest to join us in about 12 minutes to do with some matters of promises and reality. So let me give you both the opportunity to make your comments regarding the anti-gang legislation. And since myself and Carolyn have been here all night so far, Apostle, I'll give you the chance to go first. You're muted. You have to unmute.
Thank you so much again, and good night to you and good night to everyone. Viewing all the loyal opposition. Madam Caroline, it's always good to see you. Good to be.
See you too, Apostle.
Yes, ma'am. Good to be with both of you here on tonight, and quite a lot to be said here tonight. And
a lot to unpack.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you so much. I was traveling over last week, and so it's good to be back home. I have several things that, of course, I want to look into, but in terms of this anti-gang legislation, I think Mr. Thorne is a missing voice from the areas in Barbados and from the Parliament, and his presentation on brass tacks is, par excellence. I mean, again, you know someone who has years of experience and the knowledge in terms of dealing with these matters. And as he said, he brought this up over 2 years ago. So this government is 2 years behind. And when I found that they don't like to take advice from persons who may be more skilled than they are. It looks really silly that after denouncing the need for the anti-gang legislation, they have to 2 years later come back to the public of Barbados. And like I said in a couple sessions before, it looks like stupidity is the new intelligence here in Barbados. But let me just add to what I heard. I listened to the entire clip with Mr. Thorne, and he's absolutely right about the language that the government is using as they purport this bill to the public. And you can see that they're focusing more on the guy taking a gun and getting on a motorcycle and driving through a district. Let me just say that is just the product. That is not the root of the matter. That is just the fruit, not the root of the tree. Okay, and from my perspective, I would rather that they have what I would call a national anti-terrorism court rather than a gun court. Okay, because when you look at the area of terrorism, it's actually defined as the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, to pursue political, religious, or ideological goals. It is a broad term. It says that generally involves coercion or instilling of fear to influence a government, intimidate the public, or to disrupt societal structures. That's the definition of terrorism. And what we're seeing, these shootings, and with all of this gun violence, this is actually terrorism. So if you're just going to have a court that is going to be specifically dealing with, gun activity, importation of guns, and the use of guns and all of this stuff, then you're really not dealing with the matter. And what I've realized, like Mr. Thorne has realized, this government does not want to deal with crime in Barbados. I mean, we had 3 gentlemen that were killed, gunned down at Thunder Bay. Report stated that the gentleman who did the shooting showed up in tactical garments, tactical wear, and nothing was said about that. So when you're looking at the area of organized crime, you cannot specifically look at the guns and the use of guns. You've got to look at how are the guns getting into Barbados, okay? And as you just said, we have certain points of interest here in Barbados. We're going to have a full one just now with the Paintree project there. But here's the reality. The language that the government, as Mr. Thorne clearly stated, outlines their mindset on the matter. Their mindset on the matter is not to deal with the real issue of crime in Barbados. They want to deal with the guys who are on the motorcycles or driving by in vehicles or driving by, running into an area and doing the shooting. That seems to be where they want to target. But if you really want to deal with this is an anti-terrorism element that they need to bring to the fore. For instance, things like making a decision that no container can leave the port without being inspected at the port. Okay, so no customs officer is going to be going to a private residence to inspect a container. These are things that they need to pay attention to. Beyond that, there is a need to introduce high-tech scanners for these containers, high-tech metal detectors, bringing in the K9 unit, bringing in the Army to work with the customs officers, bringing in the police to work with them when containers are being inspected. So we need like a collaboration between the customs officers, the police, the K9 unit, the Army. We need to collaborate persons so that we stop the flow of guns that are coming in to our island. And I'm seriously looking at the reality that this administration does not speak to the elements that are bringing the drugs in, bringing the guns in. They're not dealing with the organized crime element that we have here in Barbados. And we do know that there is a very heavy organized crime element here in Barbados. And the government does not seem to want to touch that area. For some reason, they think that the boys on the street, the guys that are on the lower echelon of the gang hierarchy, they're the ones that are creating the problems. No, these guys are carrying out the orders of somebody else. We need to find out who that is. Now, several years ago, let me just say this quickly. I listened to a documentary that was on the History Channel, and it was dealing with drugs in the inner city in America. And there was this one guy who was there. They had his face blotted out and his voice doctored. And he was saying he went to China. He went to China to meet with a crime boss in China. And he said when he got there, they got him off the plane, got him into the SUV, took him to the business center where this gentleman was, and he had a meeting with him because he was looking to diversify what he was doing. And he said the Chinese crime boss said to him, "What is wrong with you black people? What is wrong with you guys?" He said, "You guys have pretty much everything going for it, but you guys do not know how to work together." He said, "We Chinese, we are successful because we've learned how to work together." So when you look at the reality of what is starting to happen in Barbados, and I said this before on a prior show, when you look at what is happening, a guy who is 16 years old who has been arrested as a shooter, let's go back 5 years, go back to 2019. That boy was just 9 years old. So what happened between 9 and 16? Well, I'll tell you what happened between 9 and 16. COVID happened. COVID happened where the government had all of Barbados under lockdown. So boys and girls could not, go to church. They shut the church down, and they need to come and apologize to the church. They shut the church down, left all boys and girls opened to the guys on the block who are running the system. Those guys now that were running the system are now in their 20s, latter 20s, early 30s. So now these guys are coming up. These are the guys that they trained. So when we're dealing with the area of gang warfare in Barbados, there's a training that goes on in the gang system. There's a training that goes on in the corrupt systems of the world. There's a developmental process.
Yes.
You don't just become a guy who becomes a shooter at 16 has obviously gone up through the ranks very quickly. So this government is not prepared to deal with it. And as I said, now you have folk who are going to take money from the government to do projects. When I was growing up, we had 3 churches in the area. There was an Adventist church, a Christian Mission Church, New Testament Church of God. All 3 of those churches had projects and events during vacation. All of the kids knew where they had to be. The Adventists had their Bible school, didn't take any money from the government to run that Bible school. The Christian Mission, the New Testament Church, we never had to take money to do that. So when you're looking at the reality of dealing with anti-gang legislation and dealing with the elements that kept our children away from these individuals who could corral them and then train them and bring them on board, we as a church, we shut all of that out. But we literally got closed down during COVID, and this is where a post-mortem needs to go back. How are we where we are? How did we end up being here? Why are our young men where they are? Why are they involved in gangs? Why are they now shooting? Why is there so much corruption? All of these are things that this administration, they're not going to deal with.
Yeah. Let me just jump in here quickly before you comment, Carolyn, because to me there needs to be if I was in a government, if the government wants to be transparent in this matter and is serious, I'm sure they can seek the help of Interpol, CIA, FBI, or any of the agencies that would be objective because they're not under the control of government. They are not under the influence of government. And I would have called in, not that our police do not have expertise, but there are questions raised concerning the operation of police as well. I heard one attorney raise that during the same Brass Tacks program on Wednesday. Not that we don't trust our police. One bad apple can, you know the old song, but it so happens that one bad apple can spoil a whole barrel. But I believe that not until we get some external entity, investigative entity, established to look into the matters of corruption and all these different things that you've mentioned in the anti-gang legislation refers to, that we will not see an end to this matter.
There you go.
You already have the President of the United States of America shutting down the movement of drugs off of the South American North Coast. We have a lot of activity going on in the Caribbean, a lot. All of the Caribbean countries are grappling with drugs and guns and so on. Then bring in, clearly, the fellas on the street don't have these financial resources to be able to be buying AK-47s and even tactical gear like what you're talking about. That's not 5 cents. Tactical gear is expensive.
Exactly.
Obviously, there are people who have the money. And we don't know. We don't know who authorities. We don't know if it's anybody in government. We don't know if it is ministers. We don't know if it's the very prime minister herself, because she wouldn't be the first prime minister to be arrested stepping off of a plane in Miami, Florida. The Bermuda prime minister was arrested already by the FBI. So I would say that if the prime minister and the government of Barbados are serious about dealing with crime in Barbados, call in an external independent entity and have them start to deal with the matter. That's my take on it. Carolyn.
I'm agreeing with what Mr. Thorne said on Wednesday. And I agree with what Apostle said. We are looking at the fruit and we are not dealing with the root. And I want to just say here, as the evidence that I chose to look at when I say that. Recently, there was a gentleman, and I don't even think we have a name for him, I could be wrong, who was caught with a number of guns and ammunition.
Correct.
Not one that I would say that he's using it for his protection, but a number of guns. Oh, what happened? What happened? I think the judge said to him, you're going to spend 15 years for each piece of ammunition that you would have had. And you know that sounded great if it was just like that. But then he says it's going to run concurrently. I asked the question, are we serious? And I think, are we really serious? Are we serious? And as far as I'm concerned, there it is. Now, if you would have had a little guy on the street, and as a matter of fact, guys on the street are probably spending more years than this man who had all of that ammunition. My question would be, what was he doing with all of that? Is he one of the persons who were renting to the shooters? I don't know. But his punishment was really a slap on the wrist, you know, and, you know, quickly pushed aside. So my question would be, even in passing this anti-gang legislation, you're speaking about the fruit all the while. The little boys in the street with the guns who are killing themselves. We got gun court. We are speaking at the bottom. And as far as I can see, it looks like the intent is to listen, pass this legislation, but really and truly, we out for the ones at the bottom, just the ones at the top.
Well, but again, you see the problem that we've all
you wouldn't get away.
The problem we've always had in Barbados, from my observation, is enforcement. Okay, and I'm just going to give you a couple of illustrations. You remember there was legislation passed that prohibited minibuses from carrying upgraded sound systems. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And almost every single minibus you hear pass you today with music blasting, and you know it is the amplification system that they installed. Legislation was passed that they could only have an ordinary radio in the van. The other one has to do, regrettably, have to make a comment on it, with this silly legislation passed to do with window tinting. When have you seen anybody stopped on the highway to do a window tint? I'm not saying I am in agreement with the legislation. I'm simply talking about enforcement.
Right.
It is, and this is where the problem comes in. Laws are passed, and it is enforced for some and not for others. That's why they talk about a two-tier judicial system or justice system. You just referred to it, Caroline. Right? If that was somebody else. And then I think I heard somebody on the program with Mr. Thorne, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, speak about the fact that the police intruded into a particular event or environment, and a phone call was made to someone and they were told to leave. That is why I am saying that until this government gets serious about having, and I'm not talking about, I saw somebody put something up on the thing here, which I highlight, where they said, not like the toothless CARICOM observers either. Until we get an entity coming in from outside of Barbados that neither the government, the prime minister, the members of parliament, the judiciary, the police, the customs, the immigration, nobody can influence or affect, to do a full investigation, and the stuff that you all know would be involved. Until I see that happen, this government is not serious about bringing an end to gang violence in Barbados.
Yeah.
Because the point is being made continuously, and I'm looking at the notes I have here from this thing with Mr. Thorne. The focus is on street level offenders versus organizers. The people at the top of the totem pole.
Yeah.
Who are buying these weapons overseas, and then there has to be some investigation by the FBI for the connection between the United States and any other country to Barbados, because as far as I am aware, we don't manufacture guns in Barbados. Now I know they're 3D printers and whatnot. I hear they can create weapons and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know all of that technical stuff. All I know is that we don't have any official gun manufacturing companies in this country.
Yeah.
So they're being imported from somewhere. And if we are sourcing the United States, why are we not having discussions with the ambassador of the United States to get the United States assistance in identifying those sources and tracking them and tracing them all the way into Barbados, even if at the least a minister of government have them arrested and imprisoned?
There you go. There you go.
Until we start to put bite into this matter, we are wasting our time.
Yes, sir.
To have a gun court for what? I'm not against, I understand the gun court is there to speed things through, and I get it. But we are not dealing with the root cause of the problem. And
that's
the
right.
root cause of the problem, and I've said it before, and I'm going to be diplomatic and not call the name of the country. But from the time a particular country started to invest in this nation, you cannot get them investing in this country and borrowing money from them without their elements being present.
Right.
And anybody who thinks that that is not possible is an idiot. I'm sorry. You got to be stupid. Because they are known across the world. Once they enter your domain, all of their organized criminal activity comes with them. So I don't know. I don't think, and I would say straight to the Prime Minister, if you're serious about having crime in this country dealt with, bring in the United States into the equation, or the UK, or these elements that have technology way beyond anything that we have, and have access to the technology way beyond anything that we have. With all due respect to our police force don't access satellites that can tell an Ayatollah how many on the ground by his beard. Not a single police department in this country got that capability.
Right.
Dave, let's hear the remainder of this of the clip that you have.
Investigations. The legislation supports efforts to trace and investigate financial benefits derived from gang activity. Authorities may pursue proceeds linked to organized crime, and it also talks about witness and community protection. Now, before you go on, Mr. Thorne, I just wanted to make reference to this document that would have been designed and published by the Democratic Labour Party, Blueprint to Rescue a Nation. Ms. Verda de Pisa, who's an attorney at law and criminologist. On page 59, chapter 7, you guys dedicated a whole chapter to something called the Untouchables. And in it, you're talking about certain cases in Barbados's most recent history that are not addressed, are not looked at, and gives the impression that there are some crimes that are able to be prosecuted, and others you cannot even ring the doorbell. Now, it says here the arrest and eventual, and this is a list of some of the local issues that you would have highlighted, that would have been highlighted on page 59 of this document. And quickly, it says the arrest and eventual conviction in the US of former Member of Parliament and Minister of Government, Donald Innes. It also talks about a Member of Parliament charged for time, skip that part, to serve as Deputy Speaker of the House. It speaks about the appearance by special invitation at state opening of Parliament of individuals. It speaks about the discovery of a large quantity of marijuana on board the vessel Ecstasy, owned by Goddard Enterprises Limited, and the eventual exoneration of the chair of the board of the company. It speaks about a telephone call chasing police officers in the presence of a restaurateur following an incident along Beacons Road. It speaks about malfeasance contained in successive reports of the Auditor General. It speaks about allegations of jumping the queue in the allocation of public services such as welfare and housing. So now that you talk about the anti-gang legislation not targeting quote unquote low-hanging fruit, how do we move as a society away from this whole notion of untouchables? Because this is a common refrain that we've heard since the legislation passed via comments on social media, on the calling programs and so on. Some people feel as though the target is generated mainly towards members in communities, working class communities and so on. So what are your views on that? And do you want to wait to give the legislation some time to see how it will be enforced in this regard?
Thanks for the question. And I would want to reiterate, Philip, what I said earlier, and you have focused on it as well. It is fine to read the text of the legislation. I'm sure the legislation finds itself well expressed. But what I am focusing on here is the debate, the nature of the debate that government has brought through its parliament to the people of Barbados. That the debate is focusing on the street. The debate, if you listen to the debate, or if you read the reports of the debate in the media, one gets the impression that the government is focusing on the street, that the perpetrators who are getting most of the attention by government are the boys who are riding around with the guns and so on and doing what they're doing. I have not heard a lot of discussion or a lot of debate that has focused on the upper reaches of organized crime.
Correct.
And I don't know, has government been silent on that? And if they have not been silent on it, has the media not reflected their debate that is meant to focus on the head of organized crime, because that is what anti-gang legislation is about. As they say, it's the head of the snake. It is the financier. It is the person of power who may be otherwise considered an upstanding and decent citizen who hides behind the scenes and promotes criminal activity, organized criminal activity. But here's where the debate has found itself. I heard that one speaker in Parliament talked about taking back the streets. You see the language? The streets. I heard that another presenter, another speaker in Parliament, and we hear this a lot. Guns don't walk and guns don't talk. That is utter crap. It means nothing. The other thing about if you see something, say something. If you see something, again, it locates itself at the lower levels of society, the street. Who drove through, who rode through and fired? That is not the central portion of organized crime. Organized crime finds sophisticated organization not on the streets, but in the back rooms and in the places of power.
So, Mr. Thorne, can it be said?
Yes, please.
Can it be said, when I suppose you guys have to toe a very funny line? I hope I'm not out of place for asking this question, but how is it for you? And I suppose you can't speak on behalf of other criminal attorneys and so on. But if I am a gang leader and I come to you for guidance on how to remain free and continue to do my job, what's the balance that we need to strike in society? Because you're a defense attorney, you may have to at some point represent persons of a certain nature, persons involved in criminal activity, I suppose. How do you strike that balance between your call for morals and values and a heavy hand?
Yes, I believe that either the end of the clip or we are pausing there. But you see, again, we're not dealing with the root cause. We're not dealing with the head of this fish, head of the stream, I think it is. That's what I refer to. We're not dealing with the head of the stream. And, as long as that's going to be ongoing, and I heard Mr. Thorne also refer to the fact that, there is an element of fear when it comes to all of these things, because let's face it, when you're dealing with organized crime, it's not a joke, These are people who threaten you, your family, your children. These are people who do not joke. And it's regrettable to say that we have got in Barbados to that level, to that level where persons are afraid to come forward and say anything or that kind of activity. That's why I'm saying maybe it is better if someone from outside of the country actually engages this matter, where people within the context of the country will not feel threatened by the presence of these gang elements. Wonderful. Now I see Ms. McClean is in the back room, and if you just give me an indicator, Maxine, that you're ready, I'd like to bring you in. If you can just give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. Wonderful to have you joining us. Good evening to you, Mademoiselle McClean. And welcome to the Marcia Weekes Show. It's always a joy for me to share any show with you. I always enjoy it. I learn so much. And, we sit at the feet of a very experienced lady in governance and in your particular area of expertise, along with other things, because I never lectured at the University of the West Indies. I went for 1 year. I was there for 1 year, but I'm a learner. So I am quite happy to sit at your feet. Good evening, ma'am. A pleasure to have you join us. No, we're not hearing you. We're seeing your mouth moving, but it's difficult to interpret. You're going to go out and come back in. Okay, she's going to try that again and come back in. We'll have to get a sign language expert to to tell us what she's saying. You know, I thank God that we can laugh in the midst of all of this. You know, I always find it necessary sometimes to ease some of the seriousness of what we're dealing with, because sometimes you can't believe it, you know, Carolyn and Apostle. Sometimes you begin to wonder, is this the same Barbados that we knew when we were, I don't want to say children in the sense of little people, you know, teenagers even. Is this the same Barbados? It leaves you to wonder, you know. So I don't know if you want to continue a couple of your comments until Ms. McClean is able to join us. She's trying to get in.
I just want to quickly say, Rev, I live next door to a very influential gentleman. I'm not going to say who he is, but we have conversation from time to time about the, you know, Barbados and the whole political system here. And you know, one day he said to me, he said, young Scantlebury, 3 things that I want you to remember. He says, number 1 is implementation. He said, number 2 is execution. And number 3 is enforcement. Implementation, execution, and enforcement. He said those 3 things, and you can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He said if you implement badly and you execute badly, you're not even going to get to a place of enforcement. But this administration, he says, does not implement anything properly. It doesn't execute anything properly, and it doesn't enforce anything. And
Yeah,
I said,
it makes sense. Absolutely makes sense.
Seriously. So, you know, I said this to Mr. Jones when he was in, I was on the board at the then St. Lucie Secondary School. I was on the board there for 6 years. And he invited me to a meeting that he had at the Ministry of Education at the time to deal with the deviant behavior. And we got to the point where we were discussing, just as you said, the music on the PSVs. And I told them, you know, a law that is passed but not enforced is not a law. My dad told me as a little boy, he said, listen to me. He said, listen to me carefully. A decision made but not acted on is not a decision. He said, a decision made but not acted on is not a decision.
It's a thought.
Yes, sir. So I've learned that when I make a decision to act on that decision, that's when it's a decision. So I told Mr. Jones, a law passed but not enforced is not a law. You know, so folk laughed and I was there. So it was I said, you have enough marshals and you have enough police personnel, and all you have to do on mornings is to have them on dress clothes, the marshals, and have them at strategic places to see if the minivans are going to pass with music playing. And if they're caught, then that vehicle comes off the road the same day. The driver's license is suspended for a month. The conductor's license is suspended for a month. That vehicle is off the road for a month. I don't think anybody wants that.
But I'm going to even push it. I'm going to even push it further than that, Apostle, because, you know, I have said that until things begin to hit people in their pocket, we are not going to see a change to what is considered the minibus culture in this country.
There you go.
You made a comment that triggered something to me. You said you used one word just now that triggered something in my mind, the word music. Music used to be and still is one of the most powerful mediums.
Yes, sir.
For affecting the behavior of people. I remember years ago when I was a child, it was the Beatles that in a couple of their songs referred to pigs as pigs.
Mm-hmm.
And that became the catchword throughout the United States of America to this day.
Mm-hmm.
To this very day. Music is an extremely powerful medium, lyrics and content. And our young people are being bombarded 24/7 by immoral, sexually explicit, violent content, gun-toting music.
Correct.
by persons who they are led to emanate, who do nothing to inculcate within them any sense of moral responsibility or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
And we fail to recognize how critically important those children going to school in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Their minds are open in the morning. These are, I mean, Carolyn, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How
Ralph,
the brain operates within the context of reception in the morning as opposed to in the evening.
yes, sir.
And the fact that they taught the Jesuits, remember the Jesuits said, give us a child for the first 7 years and I will show you the man.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Yeah, I know you were trying to.
I want to add quickly to this that there's a rule book or a book concerned with the laws from the Ministry of Education. And part of the law of the Ministry of Education says that once a child has a government school uniform on, once they step off the property of their parents, that child is now the property of the government of Barbados. Okay? And per the Ministry of Education, that's in that book. So how does a government who knows I am in charge of that child from the time they leave their parents' home until they get to that secondary school or that primary school, the government that knows that that child, I own and control that child, how does a government get to the point where they cannot tell the PSVs, this is my child, and you must not play that kind of music while my child is on its way to school?
Right. And you
so when I saw that in the law, I said, now this is interesting. Okay. So until a child leaves school and gets back onto their parents' property, that's when the government releases or relaxes control of that child. So how can a child that a government is responsible for is bombarded by this kind of music on their way to school and on their way from school, and you can't do nothing about it? When I saw that, I said, now this is serious business, because it shows you that I'm not really interested in your child. I'm just interested in the system. And the other part that I want to add to this, again, a documentary of a rapper who was invited. He says he went to the 29th floor of a building to an interview. And in that interview, he says there were individuals that stated that the government of America had now privatized many of the maximum security prisons in America. And the more inmates that they have, the more money they get from the government. And they said they found out that they were getting more black males incarcerated by them listening to the rap music and being involved in the gang. So the meeting was to ask them to produce more gangster rap, because the idea was to get more black men listening to this music, getting them committing crimes, and getting them into the prison so that they get more money and they get paid from the monies that the government gives them to incarcerate their own black brothers. This is a black on black crime that we're dealing with, and the root of it, my friends, the root of it is what we have to go after, because it is a matter of national security. When it comes what is happening in Barbados, where our black young men are just destroying each other, something is going wrong in this country. And the fact that this administration seems to be afraid to do the things that are necessary to at least make a dent in the levels of corruption and crime and violent crimes that are in Barbados, it says something very clear to me. Either you know, or either you are involved in what is happening.
You could be complicit. You know, this is why I've said, and I see Maxine is back in, and I know she's trying to come back in on a different device. So, can I go ahead and bring you on in, Maxine? Just let me know. Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome again.
Thank you.
That's a lovely outfit you're wearing.
This is
Apostle,
a tribute to my ancestors. I got this in Ghana.
Oh wow!
Apostle, we gotta do something, boy. We gotta change our wardrobe. we gotta try to keep pace with this lady. I thought this lady was slowing down, but don't appear that way to me. Oh, Maxine, it's so nice to have you. Really, quite seriously, it's really nice to have you on the show. I'm glad you could get back in.
I've been listening to the show, and I want to thank all three of you because we continue. In fact, only today I was told by two ladies. I was at a funeral, and they said, we watch the Marcia Weekes Show every evening, and we are learning so much. Unprompted, I was just leaving the graveside to leave, and they stopped me, and that was it. And I think that sentiment is not unusual or peculiar to the two of them. I hear it all the time. And you know what I say to them? I said, the people who do this show do it for free. Nobody pays anybody. Marcia does not have sponsors. Dave works very hard, and the Barbadians appreciate what you are doing, or should I say what we are doing, because I have to include myself in here.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you, because I hear it. I cannot go anywhere unless somebody says something to me about the show, and that is no exaggeration.
Very good.
Yes, I can concur with you, Maxine. Everywhere I turn, and I mean everywhere, supermarket, gas station, airport, no matter where I turn, I see people looking at me quite hard, and then they will come to me and say, "Are you Dr. Ferdinand?" And I would go, "Yes." They say, "Oh, we watch your Marcia Weekes Show, and thank you for all your." We hear this all of the time, and we are really grateful. I certainly am for the opportunity, because it's a different season for me. I've been involved in Christian ministry a lot more than in this area, but I am the pot and he's the potter. So he uses the vessels how he sees to do so. Now, Maxine, I know that you were scheduled to address a subject entitled Promises versus Reality. I don't know if I'm going to leave it in your hands to see, because to be honest with you, I think it actually ties in.
I was going to tell you exactly
everything.
I was going to use all that I heard earlier to demonstrate and to illustrate exactly when we talk about promises versus actual delivery.
Well, let me
Hmm?
step back, and Apostle and Carolyn will give this young lady the opportunity to release her segment, and then we can join her a little later in terms of our involvement.
I take comfort from young, because they say once a man, twice a child, once a woman, twice a child. So I'm coming around full circle.
That makes two of us. Okay.
Yes. But as I listened to the show, and I thought about all that was promised, and I listened to some of the skepticism about oil searches and so on. It just reminded me that in the past 8+ years, this administration has made a whole set of promises to Barbadians. They have indicated that they were going to do a number of things. We have dissected things like housing, and therefore one cannot help but be skeptical. And in fact, if I start, I'll talk about oil, and then I will talk about what Apostle was talking about in relation to the in legislation in anti-gun legislation. The whole question of gun courts, etc. Anti-gang legislation. Anti-gang legislation. And I was very touched when I sat and I listened to the VOB program with Mr. Thorne, with Ralph Thorne. And I will say this publicly, I trust that there is no pressure put on VOB and that new moderator, Mr. Philippe Amy, for having him on the program. I don't know if the moderators choose their guests or if the station, you know, the program director or whatever, or whoever the person is managing that, if that person chooses the guests. But to hear Mr. Thorne speak to an issue that he has been advocating in Parliament and outside of Parliament for the past 2 years was important, because he made a critical point when we talk about promises versus delivery. Yes, we are at the stage of debating, well, not debating because there's no opposing voice, but discussing or speaking to a piece of legislation in Parliament. And I guess you would get some kind of debate in the Senate, and I would have heard opposition senators and the independent senators speak since our election. So you will get some kind of difference of opinion there. But in listening to him speak about it, my concern, and I think the concern of Barbadians, and we were hearing it just now, is one, my concern is that here we have a piece of legislation. Yes, the Barbados Police Service, police officers have been solving crime. So somebody gets shot, somebody gets stabbed, somebody gets beaten to death, somebody gets robbed. And in this case, we're talking about guns and murders and that kind of thing. The police solve that part. In other words, they're able to find the person who pulled the trigger. But we know in this country that the 16-year-old, I go back to the point that was made, the 16-year-old who murdered somebody, the 22-year-old who murdered somebody, that individual did not walk into Barbados or walk out of Barbados and walk back in with a gun. We hear of rental of weapons and all of those things. You would hear of police, and I always tell people, where several persons are charged with a crime, it is usually as soon as the police is able to find one or two, the others are. Because you know what it says to me, and the police may tell me otherwise, but what it says to me is once they get their hands on one of the perpetrators, sooner than later, the person speaks about what happened. So why is it that we cannot hear, we can hear that John Brown was my accomplice? And I am sure the police might have heard, I didn't own this gun, because we even hear prices for renting in this small society. And I don't think these are numbers people make up. So the point I'm making is when we start to slant a debate or a presentation on one segment of the criminal network, and I choose the word carefully, a network, it's not individuals up there operating in isolation. So why is it that we cannot crack that? I was part of the Democratic Labour Party Commission on Crime that was referred to in the brass tacks program with Mr. Thorne and Mr. Amy. And there's a chapter talking about untouchables. And he went into some specifics from that, because we recognize that there are persons out there in the background who are party to this. They may not be out there sticking at nobody or shooting somebody or whatever, but there are probably the persons who are some of the major beneficiaries of the crime, whether it is drug trafficking, arms trafficking, etc. So I think when we talk about the promises, we will bring anti-gang legislation. But if that legislation does not allow the country to see a breaking up of the network, I use the word again, the criminal networks, and that we are dealing with what I would call like a drug mule. They deal with the ones at the bottom of the ladder, so to speak, and we're dealing with the ones who find themselves killing off each other or killing people, because I hear of contract murders and so on. So I think that is one of the what I would call the difference between a promise and what is delivered. Now, of course, some people may argue this piece of legislation is now being debated and it has to be put in place. But if you debate a piece of legislation and your focus is on only a small or a specific segment, then we have problems. So that is how I would illustrate one of the problems. One of the things that I want to talk about, I'll talk about. Let me pause there. I don't know if Apostle, you want to respond to any of what I said, or Carolyn, or
Carolyn, did I see your hand go up just now or something?
Yes.
and
yes.
a smile on her face.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something. Now, I was listening very carefully. If I did not know that the legislation was so, in depth, I would be led based on the debate in the House and the name of the legislation, anti-gang legislation. If I was a gangster, I would think, well, Mr. Thorne and the DLP coming up with some kind of legislation against us. And it seemed to have been portrayed as this is what they want us to do to you all. And the debate is on just who we call perhaps the gangsters. Let's give them stiff penalties. Let's go after them. Let's make sure that they are no more gangs. Let's break them up. Let's break them up. Let's lock them up. Let's punish them. And it would seem as if the attack is against the regular poor individuals. And yes, this attack is being spearheaded by the opposition or by the Democratic Labour Party and Mr. Thorne. This is what I saw coming through. This is what I hear coming through. This is what I was picking up, and this is what I am feeling. And therefore, when the time comes, these people are going to fix the Democratic Labour Party and Mr. Thorne. Now, knowing the entire legislation, it looks as if, and I would say this, if I had to come up with, I was forced to come up with legislation against my acquaintances, I said I'm forced to come up with the legislation against my, exactly, I am getting the pressure, shooting after shooting, so I am forced. I am forced. It ain't like I want to. I am forced to do this. What I will do, I'll braid up. I'll put it there. But I'm going to focus on the part that does not touch my people. And I will beat on that part all the time to the extent that the other persons are agitated. Because I have to come out of this looking good. And that is that is what I picked up from just concentrating on that part of the legislation, just debating that part. And I'm glad that Mr. Thorne had the opportunity, and I would say,
yes,
and he had the opportunity to come and defend and let persons know that there's more to the legislation than what is being debated or what is being said or what is being acted upon, that there is more, and not make people think that he is anti against the little poor boy in the street running around with the guns. So I'm glad he had that opportunity, because as I sit and I listen, and that is just my opinion, I'm not saying it is so, it would seem to me that was the agenda. And I'm glad, Mr. Thorne, if you're hearing, I'm glad that you got the opportunity to speak up and to speak out and to say what the legislation is in full. Because these guys that are running around with the guns, they're not going to read anything. They are going to be listening to what is said. They are just listening to the words and the little snippets that they get and that they throw for them to influence them. They're going to get that. So when they hear the debate, they're going to think, okay, Mr. Thorne, you and your people and Furley the Peace and all, this is what you all want them to do to me. And not that they want to do it. This is what you want them to do. They're forced to do this to us because of you. And that is the angle that I am seeing it at. Again, I said it is just my view.
Mm-hmm. Maxine, I'd like to ask you a question if I can. I don't know if you heard my comments relative to, because you were Minister of Foreign Affairs, is that right?
Right.
I think you were Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, I was. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard my comments relative to external elements being invited to engage this process. I don't know what is involved in it in terms of, a government fulfilling what they're promising. As you know, I know that one of the primary responsibilities of government is the security and protection and safety of its citizens. But what would be involved? Suppose we wanted, as a government, to seek the assistance of the FBI, CIA, or whoever the relevant authorities would be that could act independently of any influence within the context of Barbados. That's what I'm actually getting at, because there's a sense in which people just don't trust the Barbadian context, government, nobody to get this done. What would be involved in something like that?
I think basically countries have bilateral agreements. So you might have an agreement between Barbados and the US, Barbados and the UK, Barbados and Canada, or where you mutual, I'm trying to remember the exact title, but in essence, where you can call upon them for assistance. And there will be certain agreed approaches as to how that can happen. I think what you're saying is that in a small country, we face the reality that the place is so small that we know each other, people are related, neighbors went to school together, whatever, and there may be some reluctance. And I think that may be part of it. If I would suggest that is more likely to be the case among the people who ordinarily are arrested and charged for criminal activity. I think part of what people have expressed fears and concerns about, because I say this in the context of the research that we didn't sit down in a room and write a document. It was based on interviews and things of that nature. So in essence, in talking to people, people were saying, look, the guy on the street the poor guy, the fellow who lives, you know, in certain parts of the island, who catches a bus to go to work and whatever, gets involved in criminal activity, that individual is charged, arrested, whatever the process happens. But there are some people who are of significant influence or means in terms of financial means, etc., who may be involved. And you know, we hear a lot of anecdotal things. I will suggest that there may be anecdotal evidence, or there may be rumors and speculation, you know, things people hear and people observe things, because it's a small community. But people are concerned that somehow, and that's where within the context of that report we spoke of untouchable, some people seem to be able to get away with things. You might hear of a case and or suspicion or suspects, and somehow things seem to disappear or never come up at all. So I think part of the call for help, let me put it this way: what we probably need is a willingness to deal with whoever. In other words, as I say, let the fall where they will. I think that's the expression. That if something comes up and persons are suspected, that you go through the people, you know, the proper procedures, and those persons, if found to be involved, that they face, you know, the legal system like everybody else. And I think that is it, that there's that the law is quote unquote blind, as we say it's supposed to be, you know, and justice is allowed to occur. So to answer the question again, yes, we can call on other jurisdictions, or you know, agencies and officials in other jurisdictions based on agreements that we have. But I think part of it also has to be a willingness to follow the trail wherever it takes you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does, you know, because it's just that I've observed, not just in Barbados, I've observed over the last couple of years, particularly through the pandemic, a continuous decline in trust of governments at every level, and it's global. I don't think it's just here. I think it's happening across the world. It certainly is happening through the Caribbean. I've seen it in several other countries, and I just wondered, you know, if we are serious about it, if we are serious about resolving the matter, that if it's possible, we could use persons from another jurisdiction that could be deemed objective and not capable of being influenced and directed by. Of course, I know there would have to be certain agreements and so on put in place, you know, for those kind of things to happen. I just wondered about that. Nevertheless, go ahead, Maxine, because our time is flying by so quickly, and I do want to take a few minutes before we end to touch back on the matter to do with the oil. Because Apostle really was supposed to do that.
I'm going to speak to that, because I also see that as a situation where promises are made. And let me say that this whole exploration is not new. I think you mentioned under the Oenata administration, and I will say that the whole issue of negotiating with prospective investors was also taking place. And let me also say that to me, there is no necessary contradiction between a commitment to a green economy and a reliance on fossil fuel, on renewable energy as opposed to fossil fuels, and the exploitation of oil and gas reserves. And I say this as somebody who had to sit down and listen to a number of my counterparts and heads of state of countries in the UK, in the European Union, in the EU, talking to Africans and people from the Caribbean, etc. Because I think there's a recognition that the targets that have been set, those targets for being 100% renewable energy reliant are proven to be unrealistic. I think somebody mentioned the whole issue of what's happening in countries in Europe.
Yeah, in Europe, I was the person who mentioned
problems.
that.
So there are two things. One, the likelihood of such a transition in the short to medium term, it is very low. Secondly, the reality is that a lot of fossil fuel reserves are in developing countries. Africa, you mentioned Africa, you talked about Angola, you can come to the West Coast. Nigeria has been producing
Namibia,
oil.
I think Namibia is starting drilling.
Namibia and all of these countries. I mean, Uganda, I think, have had some finds. Ghana is about to exploit theirs. You've had Equatorial Guinea, which is almost like an island off the coast, but, a part of it in West Africa. The unfortunate reality is when you look at Nigeria as the largest of the countries and producers, for years would have been shipping their crude oil unprocessed and buying refined oil, bringing it back into the country. Fortunately, and he got some pressure from the entrenched interest in the country. He's the richest man in Africa now, Dangote. He built a 20 billion or whatever refinery, and that is in fact, with all that is happening in the Middle East now, that is what is saving Nigeria, because they would have had extreme difficulty sourcing refined oil. And so my take on it is that while onshore, we should continue to pursue a renewable energy agenda. Ironically, and I think you mentioned this, Pastor Ferdinand, that while we have electric cars, what are they charged on? They are charged on fossil fuel generated electricity generated using fossil fuels. So in essence, my take is this: there will be a continued global reliance on fossil fuels. What concerns me, and I think I read this into what Carolyn was saying, can I trust the government based on its track record, not even going back to, let's say, Oinata's administration and before, the one now, the current iteration of the Barbados Party government? Can I trust them to deliver, if they have not been able to properly deliver housing projects, if they've messed up educational issues? But what I would say is what will be critical would be the selection of the partners, because it's not going to be Barbadians going out there to drill. Because one of the things that has been pointed out based on the location of Barbados is the fact that we are looking at deep oil in deeper waters than near shore or onshore oil, because we have drilled oil in Barbados. If you went up to BNOCL. And I want to say this very quickly because I know we have some time constraints. I shared a video, some information with Dave, because Carolyn talked about oil spills. And I want to say this, and I'm going to refer to two Barbadians, one in relation to oil spills and one in relation to the work on climate change. We have to learn to respect our own. About 10 years ago, more than 10 years, about 10, 11 years ago, maybe 12, I introduced my colleague at the time, Minister of Energy, Darcy Boyce, and his ministry to a gentleman called Dr. Arden Warner. And he is no stranger. He lived in Eagle Hall. He used to live in Eagle Hall when he was in Barbados. If you cast your minds back to, and I sent Dave, if he was able to do it, he might be able to put up some information. Back then, remember when we had the oil spill in the Gulf?
Yes.
Of Mexico, when they were using all these chemicals and so on?
Yeah.
This Barbadian physicist working at a place in Illinois called Fermi Labs, brilliant physicist. into nuclear physics and all kind of things, sat down in front of a television watching, news coverage of that oil spill. And he said, he was very upset that the chemicals and so on. And his wife said to him, so why you don't come up with a solution? And he did. He didn't come up with one. He came up with several solutions, which are not only patented, but they're now being commercialized. I introduced him to the government and people of Barbados, the ministry, and I know that my colleague would have handed the information over to the permanent secretary, etc. And this gentleman was prepared to he had a team of his colleagues to come here to go on that mobile site near the Hilton and near Radisson.
Yes.
To demonstrate that his methodology, which did not use chemicals. I never did physics at school, but what he did was to magnetize the oil. And in magnetizing that oil, he would have been able to lift it off. Let's say there was a spill in the ocean. Up to now, this is 10, 12 years later, he has been ignored by this country. You remember about 2 or 3 years ago, there was an oil spill off Tobago?
Yes,
I
do.
remember calling, I think I would have called Marcia to get the name of, I think it was I think his name was, from Tobago. And I said to the person, please put whoever you can in contact with Dr. Warner. And hopefully, if he's extremely busy, if I can get him, maybe one that we can get him to talk to us on this program. He has been able to negotiate and has been working with the people in Trinidad and Tobago and initially with that oil spill. And this is a Barbadian. Now he has gone. This is not an idea, because when he was doing that, he is now, I have recently sent his information to a person from the Caribbean working within the EU, International Trade Center. That's not their remit per se, but I know that this person interfaces with key decision makers. So when I heard you mention the Prime Minister addressing some meeting, I asked myself, is she or would she be prepared on my say-so or suggestion to go and do some research on where Dr. Warner and his team have gotten with the products that he is using to clean up oil spills, to share it with those countries? I've shared that because at the end of the day, here we are. We have a Barbadian who has revolutionized the cleanup of oil spills, which allows you not to use chemicals that will kill. Remember we saw those seagulls and all of those things dying.
Yes.
But it also allows you to recover oil.
Wow.
So you don't have to break it up and destroy it, you recover it. So I use that because, as we talk to plan, we also have to realize that we don't have to go too far sometimes to draw on the best brains. The second person that I would share with y'all is somebody called Professor Leonard Nurse. Very honest human, lives in Barbados, retired from the university a couple of years ago, but is very much involved in renewable energy in terms of a whole set of things. And I would just, if I can pull it up here, let me just read quickly and I would pause. Leonard Nurse, and when I say Professor Dr. Leonard Nurse, is a former director, Coastal Zone Management Unit and Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Barbados. This is an old bio. This is Dr. Warner's picture here on, and for those people who into Common he's an old Common area student. I know how it is past their colleagues with some Common areas. So I share that for those. But he's a brilliant, I remember when he was a youngster getting ready to leave secondary school to go into university, I used to stay with his mom in New York. His brothers and sisters, a lot of Barbadians might know some of them, So he is one. The other person that I was mentioning who could help us to understand the whole issue of climate change now is Dr. Leonard Nurse. they say he's regarded as a leading practitioner in coastal resources management regionally and internationally. He has taken on numerous consultancies in the field for regional governments. In fact, he was very much involved in the negotiation of our maritime boundaries and so on. So I am suggesting that there are people out there who can help us to understand some of these issues. And I would end by saying this, he's also a Nobel Prize winner. When I heard you mention Al Gore, he was working on one of those teams and continues to be recognized as somebody who understands these issues. So I heard y'all talking about, the issues and some of the concerns that people have, genuine concerns, but I thought I would bring an example of somebody who is seriously doing work that can speak to some of the issues as they relate to us when we talk about these. So he understands these issues a lot. All I'm saying is that we have within our community, whether it is in the diaspora, as in the case of Dr. Warner, or sitting right at home, being involved at regional and international levels still, persons who can be brought, or whose intellects can be brought to bear on some of these things. There he is.
Yes.
And he is one of several siblings who have, made some very interesting contributions in this country. And so I thought I would share that because there's some other areas that we could have looked at. I will promise you, we've talked about housing, so I don't need to look at the promises made there and the failure to deliver. In fact, recently I heard another news item, which I have to research because I only heard part of it. Some lamenting about a housing project where something seems to have gone wrong. And I recently spoke to a gentleman who told me that a friend of his was offered a house in Lancaster. And it was like over $300,000. Now, these houses are supposed to be starter homes and so on.
Yes.
Who can afford, who can afford, in fact, at that price, given what it is, I mean, by the time that person gets a mortgage and, you're paying over the life of the mortgage, but still, I mean.
But those houses in Lancaster, Maxine, I mean, if they're 600 square feet, they're big. And I can tell you personally, because a gentleman who I did business with a week ago was one of the people who they called regarding those homes. And the price quoted to him was 334,000 Barbados dollars.
That's a lot of money.
Okay. And the house, I'm sure, because I was into housing myself. We didn't get through it, everything that we were looking to do. But I think I have enough common sense to know the difference between a 600 square foot house and a 900 square foot house. And those houses at Lancaster are not 900 square feet. I can tell you that. So you're correct there. But let me just say this very quickly before I ask Apostle, because Apostle has some information to share that I'm sure we would all love to get into. And I'm watching some of the comments. I'm putting comments up there. If you all see a comment you want to comment on, please go right ahead and do so. But I just wish, Maxine, that politicians would stay out of science. If politicians would stay out of the scientific component that we're dealing with, life would be a whole lot better, and we would know a lot more accurately what is going on. And I'm not just speaking about matters to do with climate change. I'm talking across the board. Neil Harper was one of those people, I think you might recall, Maxine, who was recommended to the Barbados government here to do with cybersecurity, and they ignored him. And he's one of the guys advising EU countries on the matter, as far as I'm aware.
Neil Harper, yes. Many people would know his father before Nigel Harper. So.
Yes.
No,
Nigel.
But when you say still, I think they should recognize where they should go to get the information and the talent.
Yes. And
so I understand what you mean.
I don't mean that they shouldn't be involved in the process from a governmental end, but take the expertise from the people who know, and not within the context of individuals who may be engaging in, I'm sorry to say it, nefarious activity for the sake of making money. And that's all I'll say on that. Apostle, I don't know who do you recognize that? Or Dave took it down. I was wondering, Maxine, if the person he had up there on that video.
That was Arden. That was Dr. Warner.
Okay,
doing a
right.
presentation. Yeah.
And is that something? How long is that clip, David? It's not too long. We might be able to listen to a bit of it. Is that okay with you, Apostle? Let me unmute you because we were getting some background noise with you there. I know. Yeah, you go ahead and unmute.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know you had some information to share concerning documents and available information to do with the oil exploration off of Barbados. And
Yes.
I want to give you the opportunity to share that with us before we go off of the scene tonight. And we only have 20 minutes left. So let me just step away a little bit. And we, myself, Maxine and Carolyn, will make one or two notes. Because I think you were looking at the aspect of examining claims being made about Barbados's offshore oil reserves, figures being quoted based on proven reserves estimates, and so on. So let me give you the opportunity, please, sir, to adjust that.
Yeah, I'm just thank you so much, and Madam Maxine, thank you again for your insight there, and you know, so much to be said. But again, the issue, the main part that I zeroed in on is again, and Carolyn spoke to it about trusting this administration, and this is pretty much what I want to speak. Just this area that I want to speak about in relation to the whole oil exploration. This is not anything new, and I want to just quickly say that my wife and my members can tell you that in 2006, 2005, 2006, the Lord spoke to me clearly about oil coming to Barbados, and he shared with me that he was shifting a vein of oil from Venezuela and Trinidad to Barbados. You know, a lot of people laugh, but it's happening now. You know, it's here now. And during that time, I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. David Thompson, who the Lord asked me to connect with leading up to the 2008 general election. We had a very good conversation. We would connect during the day, and I spoke to him about the party winning the election. I spoke to him about this oil that was going to be coming to Barbados, and that the Lord said to tell him that this oil must not fall into the hands of the Barbados Labour Party. And he told me specifically that if it does, the people will not benefit from it. Okay, and those are conversations that we had in relation to him going on to being the leader of Barbados. But subsequently, he passed after 2 years of taking the government. And so a lot of prophetic dimensions shifted. And now we're at that stage where the oil is here in Barbados. Part of what he said to me is that the oil was also going to come inland, and many individuals will find spots of oil on their property, which means that several Barbadians would go to being wealthy pretty much overnight. So that's part of what I shared with him during that time. Other intricate things that I did as I was instructed by the Lord. But we have that situation. Now we're at the point where the oil is actually here, and it's billions of it. Of course, there was testing that was going on in 2007 under the Barbados Labour Party. And then what I did when the information came out about the billions of barrels of oil, there was a Canadian firm, I think it was, that did the testing, and I took the time to make sure that I got that information. I kept it on my laptop for many years because of the magnitude. I think there was a quote of over 500 billion barrels of oil. You know, speaking on the correction, but I think that was the quote that was mentioned. Then I took the 2007 report, the 2007 report concerning the oil exploration in Barbados. And I want to just say this quickly before, and I want to deal with this in some of our upcoming sessions, to deal with this whole lie that this government is bringing on Barbados. That 2007 report mentioned that they were the 2007 licensing round table the BHP Bulletin Block Award. So I want you to listen to what is mentioned here in the information. This government mentioned 19 blocks. That original testing allocated 26 blocks. So if this administration is only talking 19, my question is, who will be drilling the extra 7 that they're not talking about? Which politician or which rich person or which rich family in Barbados is going to get those 7 blocks? Because they mentioned 19, and the original testing, I have it, documented, 26 blocks, Rev. So to come to Barbados and Barbadians and tell us that there are 19 blocks, okay? Tell me about the other 7 that you're not mentioning. So this is, again, another lie that they're bringing to Barbadians. That licensing roundtable block award gave the BHP Billington, they were awarded the Carlisle Bay and the BIMPay block. Okay, so the blocks that are mentioned are, they're given certain blocks: Road Tennis, Six Mins, River Bay, Black Belly, Green Monkey, Bathsheba, Kensington, Chapel House. They're given certain names. So this company was awarded the Carlisle Bay block and the BIMPay block. Okay, and there are 26 blocks. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Now, this administration says 19. My question to them, what's going on with the other 7 blocks that you have not mentioned to the Barbadian public? So this is something that I want Barbadians to know, that somebody is looking to steal our oil from us already before they start drilling, because they have found massive loads of oil in the waters of Barbados, and some that is going to come inland. That's pretty much what I was told. I spoke to David Thompson about that. And so Barbados is going into a very heavy oil producing state. Now, a lot of people have, their issues with it, but this is something that the Lord is doing. Unfortunately, we've found ourselves in a place where the administration that is now at the helm of this exploration is an administration that we cannot trust. They've lied to us, as Madam Maxine said. They've lied to us on education. They've lied to us on housing. They've lied to us on the economics. They've lied to us on so many elements. They've lied to us about COVID. And now we are at this point where 26 blocks, and they've told the country 19. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves the question, those blocks that have not been mentioned, who is going to be drilling those blocks? Who's going to be making their own money off oil, that and success and prosperity that should come to the Barbadian people? Who's going to be making the money off those blocks that they're not mentioning? And I think it's time for us to be very, very serious about really, creating some zone of thought and entity to really speak to the people of Barbados and speak to this administration and say enough is enough, because we cannot allow you to keep lying. I mean, I saw Dave just put the picture up with those 4 young men that plainly said, we kept our end of the bargain and the government did it. So I think now that we're on the verge of this oil, we need to have some level of systems in place to make sure that the people of Barbados are not lied to and they're not robbed like the people in Guyana. Something has to be done right now to make sure that, the good prosperity and prospectiveness of what's going to happen with these blocks of oil that are going to be drilled, the Barbadian people are secured in what is happening. So I want to talk some more about this information. And as I said, this is information that when I saw it, I made a decision to keep it on my laptop, and I kept it for years. So we must not allow this administration to come in front of Barbadians and lie to them and make it look like this is something that they just started to do. This type of testing goes all the way back to 2006, 2007, but it's just come to the fore now in 2026. But 20 years ago, under the Arthur administration, there was a lot of testing that started here in the waters of Barbados, and that was around the very same time. My wife and my members can corroborate my story. I brought this to them. I spoke to them about what the Lord showed me. So it is a vein of oil that God has shifted from Trinidad and from Venezuela, and it is found its way to Barbados. And the reason why it's going to be so successful, of course, we know that Barbados came up out of the water as a coral facility, because Barbados sits on what is called just on the outskirts of what is called the Ring of Fire, around the tectonic plates around the earth. So that's why Barbados has a very strategic position, because it came up out of the water when there was a tectonic shift. So this is why the oil exploration is going to be so successful in Barbados, and it's way more, Rev. I'm telling you, it is way more than what this government is saying, and we have to make sure that they do not end up being multi-millionaires and billionaires of what rightfully belongs to the people of Barbados. That's my input tonight.
Well, I'll tell you, I am going to not comment, because I have promised Marcia that I'm going to end the show at 10 o'clock tonight. But obviously, there's quite a lot, I hope, that she will prepare future shows to address, and that we can get all of you on, even if it's next Friday, because I don't think we've exhausted the matter to do with the legislation to do with anti-gangs or the gun courts. I don't think we've exhausted the matter to do with oil. None of these areas. I mean, even you, Maxine, you've had to move through on several areas, but I would really like to hear a lot more about the promises made and the promises not kept. And I think people need to be reminded from time to time with regards to things like those, because we get about our life and we think everything is hunky-dory. But in truth and in fact, there's a lot going on. And I'm just stunned as to how much happens in any 1 week.
Yes.
I don't know if you all realize it. And so much is happening in any 1 week that there's no shortage of content to have to engage. None. Absolutely none. And everything is always questionable, and it concerns me. So I'm going to step away from the forefront, so to speak. And Apostle, if it's right with you, I'll let probably Carolyn, you make your closing comments, and then Maxine. And then we'll hopefully, please help me close by 10. Otherwise, I may lose my job. No, I did make her that commitment, and I would like to try to keep to it tonight. So go right ahead, Carolyn, and then after you, Maxine.
I'm going to be brief, and I will say, Apostle, you are right on target. And I say this about 2 years ago. I had a vision, and I saw the oil coming up from the ground.
Okay.
And all I will say, people of St. Lucie, do not leave. People of St. Lucie, do not leave.
Come on.
Good night.
I hope the people of St. Lucie are listening to you.
That's recompense for the brown water. Recompense.
There'll be some black water now. There'll be some black
Say
water.
no more.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Maxine.
I guess you're saying, Carolyn, hold on to your land.
Yes, ma'am.
But what I thank Apostle for reminding me, because when you started to list the names of some of those blocks, it reminded me that, as you said, around 2005-06, we were hearing those names. And I can tell you, post 2008, that process continued. and I will go to whatever documents I have. I will also go and speak to former colleagues who probably, and I will say this publicly, when I really want to check some information that I can't find in lots of places, the first place I go to is former Prime Minister Ferdinand Nicholls. Not only does he have phenomenal records, but he has a phenomenal memory.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can
Yes.
say this, when he was preparing to address this issue of oil, he did extensive reading and research. I remember bringing books home from him, for him, from our late Consul General in Miami. But those names, and you just started to list them, and that is a very interesting issue. What exactly or how many of these blocks have been identified? What decisions were taken between 2005 and 2018? And what is happening now? This is not a process that is beginning from scratch. And
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I think, as you were saying, Pastor Ferdinand, there is so much to look at and to talk about, and we recognize how these things are so very much interconnected.
Intertwined, yes.
That we will press on to explore what we need to. And so that basically is my commitment and my closing word.
Wow. I really want to thank all three of you. I mean, to be honest with you, we've covered a lot tonight. You know, I was even to make mention of the Pearly App. And I didn't get a chance to mention that, but one of the things I did observe with the Pearly App is that everybody who I heard comment about it talked about the potholes. So maybe there'll be, maybe we'll get a better, maybe we'll get a better addressing. Pothole app is what I would call it, because the first thing I saw this is no joke, when I raised the matter with Chat GPT and AI, the very first thing on the Pearly App was potholes. I don't know. I have my feelings on it in regards to how I think the government could go about dealing with that from a community basis. But another time, another show. I really want to thank you, Caroline, for a tremendous job you did at the very beginning of the show, dealing with the whole aspect of the oil explorations, and you, Apostle, coming in here at the end. I just wish we had more time that we could engage more details with regards to it, because there are lots and lots and lots and lots of questions.
Yes, sir.
And that's all we're doing. We're just asking questions, because I think the people of the country deserve to know the answers, and they deserve to know what government is engaging and doing as it relates to how they're going to benefit economically. How is it going to affect prices at the gas pump and in the supermarket, and in terms of the bus fares and all these different kinds of things? I think the people deserve to hear from the government, and not no governmental statement, a position where they'd speak with decency and respect to the people, and tell us what is happening and who's going to be involved and so on. So I want to thank both of you. Maxine, I wish we had more time in terms of, like I said, those promises and so on, but I appreciate you tying it. It's just amazing, as you said, how everything is just connected. And it's very difficult to talk about any subject without going into the other subject and flowing into the other subject, because they're all intertwined. Crime is involved when it comes to matters with oil. These are involved when it comes to matters to do with payment systems and all of this. I mean, you can't separate them. It's about people, and it's about life. And as I said on more than one occasion, I am hopeful that people will stop partisanship when it comes to the matters that are in the interest of Barbados. Elections are over. Let us represent our constituents, and let us represent our country. And I want to believe that every parliamentarian takes his pledge to Barbados seriously. I think secretly, probably they do it secretly, but they should do it seriously. And that is that I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag. to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living, to do credit to my nation wherever I go. I hope that when the Prime Minister goes to be keynote speaker, that she remembers the pledge that she has spoken on many occasions in this country. I hope when the Minister to do with energy speaks, he remembers the pledge that he spoke within the context of this country. I hope all of them will remember the pledge. It was not made to the Barbados Labour Party. It was not made to the Democratic Labour Party. It was made to our country and to our flag. And that's my closing comment. Well, I want to thank all of you. Again, I want to thank the loyal opposition as well for being here, because without them, we could not have a show. And I want to thank Dave again for doing such a tremendous job. We are on the button, Dave, at 10 o'clock. And I will turn it over to you to close off the session. I want to thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Apostle. Thank you, Maxine. Wishing you all a great night. Thank you, loyal opposition. Wish you all a great night as well. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Marcia Weekes Show, Sunday at 7 o'clock. Until then, God bless you and have a great, great weekend.
Bye. Political daggers come out and the voters went whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I woke up this morning with news of elections in the air. The red bougainvillea in my garden, too tough for any garden share. Trella in Manila, Crawford and Canela, rumble in the jungle again. But it's hard to unsee all the things I see. This is how the wind went for me. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. Political daggers drawn and social unrest. A thorn in me flesh, another sweeper red. Treat her to love, still can't believe it yet. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. No real opposition and voters regress. The lack of transparency give me voter apathy. All these things still plaguing me. Moving on, I missed the day after, in the midst of the after party. The streets are lined full of supporters, drinking rum on hungry bellies. Never thought their dreams would be shattered. When I hear who get ministries, there was one in there that they campaign at all. People wonder how he get a seat. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. Political daggers drawn and social unrest. A thorn in me flesh, another sweeper red. Treat her to love, still can't believe it yet. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. No real opposition and voters regress. The lack of transparency give me voter apathy. All these things still plaguing me. Poor town, no beaten and battered. Take out the ring, it getting ugly. Poor Thorne, he nearly get martyred by the Muhammad Ali in the red party. Poor Thorne, a sheep to the slaughter. Like them black belly sheep that went down to the Guyanese. But you come with big tricks, parties and picnics, and rob my democracy. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. Controversy from beginning to end. In the Canada Sea, reach the presidency from the time he touched down in George Street. A thorn in me flesh, a thorn in me flesh. Try to lay every thorn down to rest, but they eating out me conscience and it heavy on me chest. What democracy we got left? come out and the voters went. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Have I told you? Have I shown you